All right, I'm going to call the February 9th, 2021 meeting of the Macon County Board of Commissioners to order. I'd like to welcome everyone that's here, and sorry we're having to stand outside, but we will work you in as your agenda item approaches. Do we have any announcements? Anybody? Announcements? All right, we'll all rise. We're going to observe a moment of silence. I think Commissioner Bill had some remarks, and then I'll ask Commissioner Higdon to lead us in the pledge.
Mr. Chairman and Board, as we have a moment of silence, we need to remember Mr. Rich Bankston. If you don't know Rich, of course, he was Prudential Realty, but more importantly, he served for literally decades on the county's Board of Equalization and Review. He was faithful and dedicated to this county and to the tax office, and so I think that family is, there's a lot of families worthy of remembrance, but Rich Bankston dedicated many hours to benefit the citizens of this county, so remember that family.
Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a public hearing at 6 p.m. We'll go ahead and call that to order. It's financing for Macon Middle School improvements and loan refinancing. Mr. Manager, are you going to lead us in that, or
Lori's gonna.
Lori?
Yeah, so this is the required public hearing for us to be able to move forward with this financing and Macon Middle School improvements and loan refinancings. We're looking at a 20-year term. It's going to be a public sale, have a 1-year interest only period, will be secured by a lien on Macon Middle School. The Macon Middle School loan will be about $10.5 million, and then we'll be refinancing about $11.3 million of debt. That's all I have.
What was the low bid on that?
We'll talk about that. That's
Oh.
another item. It was like 8.1 million, 8178.
So this loan covers everything.
Yeah, you got
Engineering.
architect, you got architect fees, the financing
Chairman, do we need to
costs.
ask if anybody outside?
Well, we have one signed up. Sheriff? Sheriff? Can you ask if anybody would like to speak to the Macon Middle School improvements and loan refinancing?
Does anybody want to speak about the Macon Middle School improvements? Nobody jumped up.
All right, Mr. Birch had signed up. I presume you signed up on the wrong one. Mr. Birch?
Yes.
Welcome. Do you want to speak on the Macon Middle School improvements and loan refinancing?
Oh,
No? Okay.
Sorry, I heard.
No, not a problem. Anybody else? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing. Is that good? All right, we'll close the public hearing. I guess we'll be looking for a motion to approve the financing.
Not at this point.
Not at this point?
No.
Nope.
Mr. Tate, I believe Mr. Burks might have signed up on the wrong.
I've got them on both, so yeah, got them.
Yeah, you signed up.
Is there any other discussion or any action from the board
No,
needed?
not on
Just
that.
having the public hearing.
Yep,
All right.
that's it.
Perfect. All right. We'll move on to public comment period. All right, Mr. Birch, we're ready. Welcome, Mr. Birch.
Hey, good evening. I'll try to make myself clear a little bit. Good to see you. I
Thank you.
work with Macon County Land Waste Management, but I work on the recycling center out in the, and you've all been through the recycling, you know. And I just want to say a few things if I can get it in order here. I'm not, I'm speaking mostly on my behalf because the people that work on recycling have got different circumstances to what they want and how they can work and what they can do. For me, that's no problem. That's what I'm mostly going to speak on. I've been with recycling about starting 15 years. And I'll be 70, I was 70 this past week. And it'd be very hard to start all over again somewhere else. I put a lot of years into the recycling. And I was just wanting to ask if, and I'm not trying to go above Chris Stahl. I don't know if he's talked with you or not. He said he was going to send in some recommendations. I talked to him back about a week ago. And I would like to, they're talking about, or Chris, he may have done talk to y'all about some of this. I wasn't trying to go around him or nothing, but about the ones that can and want to, which will be very few people, because most of the people I talk to on recycling either can or don't want to get more hours than what they're getting. Me, I would like to get 30 hours for me. What they're wanting to do is put some of us in part-time permanent. That way we could pay in a certain percent. Because I'm going on, starting 15 years now, and it'd be hard to start all over again somewhere else. And for me, I can't speak for nobody else, and I don't think most of the people could because of their financial situation. But for me, I'd like to go back and buy my back time for the 15 years I put in, and have that maybe computed and see what I need to come up with on that, and I'd be able to do that. And then if I get part-time permanent, and the few that want to work that, which is, from what I understand, very few that can or don't want to do that, then I could start paying in the 6% or whatever they're talking about, and have some years built up. Otherwise, it'd be hard to go somewhere else or something and start all over again. That's and then I'd like to just a minute too. I've been the years, like I said, that I've been with them. I think I only got one longevity raise during those years, and maybe have it where we could get one like every 2 years or something. But I love recycling. I love working in it. It ain't the most job that takes the most education, but it really is. It does really entail a lot working with the public and different personalities. Because a lot of you just got to know how to work with them, because people could, if you didn't know how, you could get upset real easy, And I think that's basically about all I got to say. I just want you to. Chris, I think it's submitted some stuff to y'all already. I don't know, he said he was going to.
You received anything, Mr. Manning?
He submitted something back at budget time. I think that was proposing some of that. I'd have to go look, not recently, no.
He said he was going, well, he talked to me, it was going to be about part-time permanents, people that could work 30 hours.
But that'd still go through the enterprise fund, right?
Yeah, and he got that approved in the budget to make some of his staff permanent part-time, so I don't know the status of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know about being able to buy back time since it was part-time work. I don't know if that's a possibility. We'd have to check with the retirement system, but yeah, it was approved in the budget, in the solid waste budget.
It would be very little. Well, I'd be paying for that part, but the thing I'm trying to say is, if someone else is coming on and they're just starting out part-time permanent and they're starting out, well, they're starting out maybe younger or often just starting out new. But it wouldn't be fair to the people that's already got so many years in already that like they're starting all over again to pay in the 6%. I think.
Are you still liaison there, Paul?
Pardon?
Are you still the liaison?
Yeah. I talked with Mike Decker, HR director, about this, and I think he said he'd talked to you about it one time, that if you're part-time, you have nothing to buy back. You've paid nothing in. So now if you become a permanent part-time employee and start contributions, then you're building something. But if we, according to Mike, and I said, well, how do we address this? It would take some sort of policy. I don't know if that's the EEOC or what.
And it would check, like Lori said, it would take us checking with the retirement system if that's even an option.
Yeah, I don't think it's an option to buy back part-time time.
Yeah.
I think law enforcement may be an exception, but I don't think for a regular classed employee, and it's not us saying no. it may be the retirement system saying no. And if you've talked to Mike and he told you
Yeah,
that, he
that's-
must have
yeah.
checked.
And that was as high as I could, I mean,
Yeah.
we have talked to, but.
Thank
you.
We appreciate your
Thank you,
service.
James.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, Mr. Bird, for coming to think what you do.
Yes, sir.
I see you about every day.
All right, we have Tracy Dogan.
Tracy Dogan. Sorry if I'm standing
There she is, right here.
Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. Some of you may know me as an acupuncturist, and I'm a naturopathic doctor in Franklin. And I have a big problem in my neighborhood going down the street, and I made you all handouts describing what's going on. Basically, there's a horse, a small dog, and a goat being abused and neglected. And I tried to get help from animal control, and they basically told me that they cannot remove an animal from a situation unless they file a complaint with the court, and that takes an investigation. And then meanwhile, this could take up to months, and the animal could die of the conditions that they're existing in. So I basically want to propose revisions to our current animal control ordinances, and I have compared it to many other counties. And I think these revisions will help not only my situation, but everyone's situation. I had talked to many people who have other grievances, which I addressed with the revision. Now, the revisions that I'm proposing are underlined. So if you compare it to our current ordinances, only the underlined part is new language. And I'd like to touch on a few of them. Okay, the first one would be section 90-2, and it applies to veterinarians, because I want to make it possible for veterinarians for domestic livestock to apply to our Macon County Health Department, or whoever is the higher providers for veterinary care on location for domestic livestock, as long as they're licensed and can perform the services needed. Because as far as I know, only one veterinarian is used for horses, and I don't feel that she made a very good call on this situation after reading the veterinarian guidelines. And so there are other vets in Macon County that could be called as well. The second one is for abandoned, section 90-3. These are definitions that I think they just basically make some of these revisions, just make the ordinance more clear, so that the animals are safe and people understand what their duty is when they own an animal. Now the shelter, when I added that they have to maintain a comfortable temperature outside when the temperature is below 40 degrees. And during the outside, when it's below freezing, dogs, cats, and small animals should be brought inside a properly heated building. And I've watched this short-haired small dog sit in the rain, snow, ice. I mean, it's a miracle that it's still alive right now. And animal control has not done anything to remove this dog from the property. And the horse, right now it's not illegal to use barbed wire. However, this horse is put in kind of a small enclosure and it has lacerations from barbed wire and is kept in barbed wire. And barbed wire with a horse does not prevent a horse from getting out. They just keep pushing on it till they're, till it breaks or they're dead. Because this horse is starving and it's trying to eat the grass on the other side of the fence. And it's currently keeps getting lacerations and had an infection. So that's something I would like to propose, that we make barbed wire illegal for domestic animals. And another problem that came up, this is somebody else. Well, actually, in my neighborhood, my house borders the Forest Service. So we have a lot of hunters, which I have no problem with hunting. I mean, my husband's a hunter. However, a lot of them use hunting dogs, and they leave the dogs for days to weeks. And these dogs become skin and bones. And they're trained not to come up to anybody, so it's very hard to feed them or catch them. And so I'm thinking that if you make it, define it as abandoned after so many days, that maybe they won't leave their dogs. These dogs become a nuisance too. They turn over all your garbage cans, and it's a shame, and it's hard to watch. It really is. I mean, some of them look like they're gonna just die any minute. And the last proposal is a new, oh wait, no. I have one more section. Penalties for abuse and neglect. If someone's convicted of abuse or neglect, they shouldn't be able to adopt another animal for 10 years. And like I said, I got these from other county ordinances. And the last thing I'd like to say, and I think this will help prevent problems in the future, is to make like a online test of our ordinances concerning animals, so that people who are newly adopting know what the rules and laws are concerning the animals, so they know what they're getting into. And there could be a fee charged for it, I don't know, but I think this will also deter people from possibly, even moving here if they know they're the type of people that don't take care of their animals. And I think this is serious. I mean, animals cannot speak for themselves. It's up to us to watch out for them. And that's it. Anybody have any questions? Oh, and one other thing. I am a legal assistant. I mean, before I became a naturopathic doctor for like 25 years, and I would gladly offer my time in revising ordinances or helping with any of this, if that would help. So I'd like to put that out there. Anybody have any questions?
It's good to know you. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
This is something that's, I think probably all the commissioners here, we have a heart for animals. And this is something we'll take serious, and
Awesome.
some of the guidelines and information you've left us with. I want to say thank you, and thank you for what you did for the community.
Thank you.
We always realize that it's a human problem. It's not an animal problem. It's a human.
True, true.
So We appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, does anyone else would like to speak? Public comment?
Anybody else like to speak or public comments and sign up?
You said you wanted to already?
Yes or no? Going once?
Yes, there's one
All
left.
right, welcome.
Look,
Your name, please?
Dr. Jennifer Barrett Tatum. So thank you all for letting me speak. Just a reminder that the Arts for Macon County, we're still here, we're still showing up, we still mean it. I know that there were some unexpected funds that were there, and so we would like, of course, to be considered for those unexpected funds that were in the newspaper that we have. I'll also want to second what was just stated about the animals. I am a volunteer and a supporter at the animal rescue shelter at ARC. I take care of and bring in fosters for the problem children, the ones that typically have been abandoned, abused, mistreated, and the number one dog that I bring in every single year as my fosters, and you might see them now all over Facebook, are the hound dogs that are completely emaciated, have been let go. They're full of, physical issues. I've adopted many, over time myself. I know we have our state laws, but it would be really nice if several other communities and counties that have been working with the Brother Wolf in Asheville have been working to kind of just tighten up their laws a little bit so that they're clear with a little more specificity, and that provides, the police department and animal service with a little bit of ground to stand on so that they are not in such terrible conditions and they're not quite so populating our shelters and then being really, really difficult to try and find homes for, because there's not a lot of me's out there fostering them to the point that they are able to be back in a home and with people and have emotional and physical stability again. So thank you all.
The Arts Council?
Yes, I'm with the Macon Arts.
Well, if you noticed last week, or on the 4th, we just put back the money that we had helped out of it, so it's back to where it originally was. So I'm sure you'll be making application to the community funding pool, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. Thank you.
I will.
Thank you.
good job.
Anybody else, Sheriff?
Anybody else change their mind?
No,
All right, we'll move on to
bless you.
additions to the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one thing, just a few seconds for a special presentation.
Do it under,
As soon as you can do it, I appreciate
let's do it, we'll do it right after this.
Okay.
We'll move it to A-.
Okay, A-.
Mr. Chairman, if we could also, on new business, item number 11C, if we could do 11C1 or 11C plus.
C+.
If we could do a resolution exempting architectural services for the Macon County Transit Facility expansion. I have a resolution that will accomplish that. The board would
Okay.
be so willing to consider.
Anything else? Anyone else? All minds clear? We get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Shields.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Young. All in favor? Aye. All right, item A-, Commissioner Bill, special presentation.
Yes, ma'am, we have two special guests. We have Ms. Sheila Jenkins and Dinah Mashburn. If those two young ladies will please come forward. Just a few short years ago, board and people that's listening and watching, the community got together with these two young ladies, and we wanted to start a program called No Wrong Door. Since that time, a good thing and bad thing. No Wrong Door has become a go-to place for many, many Maconians for help in many, many ways. This was a brainchild of a lot of people, but these two ladies you see standing here, sitting here now, they're going to be standing in a minute, was very instrumental in getting that started. And so, I don't know if they know this, but in 2020, what this is, there was 10 of these given away statewide. And it's a 2020 Excellence and Innovation Awards program which recognizes Macon County for the development and implementation of No Wrong Door. And it lists all the team members. Sheila Jenkins is the Executive Director of No Wrong Door. Dinah Mashburn is the Chairman of the Board of No Wrong Door. There was 10 of these given statewide by the local government, Federal Credit Union, and so I would like at this time to present this to them, and with thanks to this board, Mr. Chairman, to the folks of this community who have undoubtedly supported this. If you remember, it all started with the meeting at Macon County Bank Corporate Center. We had about 80 folks there from the community. That has since come to, if you ever want to see what these folks do day in and day out, I would advise you to go up, and Sheila will give you a tour, and she will put you to work. So I'd like to be able to present this, Mr. Chairman, with your permission.
Absolutely. Thank you, ladies.
Is Patrick out there?
He is.
Patrick Bettencourt? I don't think Patrick knows about this either. You just get right here between these two good looking ones.
Yes, sir.
Get you in the middle.
So ladies, what this is from the local government, Federal Credit Union, 2020 Excellence and Innovation Award recognizes Macon County for the development and implementation of No Wrong Door. Dinah Mashburn, Derek Jones, who is our jailer, Sheila Jenkins, who is our executive director, Samantha Brawley, Howard Daddle, who is an employee, the Reverend Mike Barras from Teen Challenge, Joy Gibson from EMS, Dale West, who's now serves as our Secretary Treasurer, Patrick Bettencourt, of course, from DSS, and they put my name on it for some reason. So, but I want to present this to you, Dinah, as Chairman of the Board, and thank you. Thank you, Sheila, for everything that y'all do. And we'd ask you to say a few words, too. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Ronnie, stand with us so we can take a picture of you.
Let me shake your
Ronnie, you want your pretty mask?
Do I want my mask? Yeah. Hold on.
You being
Be in trouble.
Stick it up in the background.
I just realized it doesn't matter.
So she would ask you down to fit.
I just want to say thank you for all your support. We could not have done, it wouldn't have happened without the support of the commissioners and county employees and with Derek. It's been, there's a lot of bad out there, a lot of hate out there, but when we get to looking at what we've put together, and when I say we, it's been a community. And the community has come together, and we have people coming in and donating and giving, and it's an awesome thing to see with the community support, because we work with people who are having a hard time. They're in a dark place, and we're trying to get them out of it the best that we can. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Our sheriff too's had a big
Big part.
big hand in this, so I don't want him to go unnoticed. We just thank all the community and the support, and
Yeah, if it wasn't for the sheriff letting us in the jail and letting us work and do classes, and we have a group in the jail, and we start trying to work with them, it's a captive audience. So we work with them and try to get them thinking and get on track before they get out. And we
Proud of you, girls, proud of you.
we thank Robbie for everything he's doing.
Let me just mention
Takes a
one thing,
village.
Mr. Chairman, that the board of No Wrong Door and Sheila is facing and the sheriff is facing, that we never anticipate, ever, is we have more than one. We have several coming out of prison to No Wrong Door, addicted. Coming out of prison, addicted. We're dealing with that now. These ladies are, and the sheriff is also, something that we never, me and the sheriff has had this conversation, of course we have several times, but that's just one of the things that, and Patrick will tell you that it's something new every day and something different, and we had a big housing program today talking about our future and that. So these ladies do a lot of things, and I encourage you to go up and visit with them anytime, and if you ever want to volunteer a little bit, that's what you do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
ladies.
much.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Tommy Jenkins. Welcome, Mr. Jenkins. Information Technology Strategic Plan Study Proposal.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Shields. Lori, I did send that stuff. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. You don't have it in your packet, so I'm going to hand these out to you. Mr. Paul, how are you, sir?
You don't have to be short tonight.
Okay. I like to be short. Last year with the on the EDC, we were talking about how to diversify our economy, and one of this discussion came up. We looked at our strengths and our weaknesses, and we really felt like one of our strengths was that we do have an anchor in the IT business right now, which is direct software, and those businesses, given the right climate, tend to cluster together. In other words, Mr. Drake would love to have another IT company in this town, so it would draw more employees, more of a workforce. So we kicked that around. COVID came along. We weren't able to move forward with what we wanted to do. But last fall, the EDC approved a proposed scope of work for information technology feasibility study through a group called Sanford Holzhauser. Sanford Holzhauser is an economic development consultant and based out of Raleigh. Their regional rep that I work with is Tom Johnson, who's based out of Morganton. Basically, what they have proposed to help us with is a five-step feasibility study to see if Macon County would be a viable candidate for IT, for relocating IT businesses there. So it'd be a five-part study. Part one would be basically asset mapping to look at existing technology and fiber, look at our school system programs, community college training programs, programs offered through Western, and amenities, quality of life, and such as that. Also our proximity to larger communities such as Atlanta, Charlotte, Knoxville. Part two would be a summary of attributes considered in location decisions by existing IT companies and a summary of various types of IT facilities. Part three would consist of possible locations for IT businesses in the county, Franklin, Highlands, and outside, of course, outside the cities. Part four will include strengths and weaknesses in North Carolina in Macon County for IT as an economic development strategy. This will compare information learned in Part 1 with attributes needed or preferred by existing IT partners, operators as indicated from Part 2. And the last part of the feasibility study will be summary and recommendations. In other words, what if it's feasible for us to go ahead and pursue this kind of market improvement. I think when you look at coming out of COVID, it looks like the economy has survived in relatively good shape locally. It looks like we're going to have growth in the next few years. You're already seeing a lot of people in business from large areas, Atlanta, down South Carolina, Florida, moving up here who for the quality of life. And of course, we know we've had success with businesses, families moving their businesses up here, such as Tectone, and also homegrown entrepreneurship through Drake. So I think this is a good niche for us to study, see if it's a viable concept for the county. And I think it's the recommendation for Sanford Holzhauser is a solid recommendation that is, I think, budget-wise, a very good investment. I think the feasibility study would be $15,000, and of course that'd come out of I'd ask that come out of existing EDC reserve. So if it looks like the feasibility study. If the feasibility study looks good, then we'd talk with Sanford Holzhauser about going into implementation stage, which could involve marketing, and they would help us with marketing and recruiting. So. Any questions?
Tommy, thank you. I guess I presume you need approval from us for those funds?
Yes, sir, $15,000.
In my opinion, I mean, we pay you to do this work, and you have a board of advisors that you work with, EDC Commission. And if I'm presuming they're in favor of this, and you have these funds in your budget to handle this, then to me, I think that we should do it.
EDC, the commission has approved it.
Okay.
Motion to approve the feasibility study is presented by Economic Development Director, and the funds to be taken from the Economic Development Fund.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Bill, a second by Commissioner Shields. Any further discussion?
Just to clarify, so those funds from Economic Development Fund is in the way of the budget amendment, correct?
That's right.
Is that what you're intending? Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jim.
Mr. Tom. All right, Ms. Carpenter. Consideration of award for Macon Middle School renovations.
You got Niquosi.
Oh, sorry. I'm completely off that. We'll stay on the Niquosi initiative. I'm sorry.
You want it?
You want that?
Yeah, if you don't want it.
I was about to move you down the aisle.
Read it.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Claw now. We'll need.
Hello, Stacy.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to try and put something in here. See how it works. Try that again. If it doesn't work, I'll just pull it up. Here we go. Let's try it here. Can you see that? You guys get it up on your computers too? So, hi, thanks for having us. I'm Elaine Eisenbrun with Niquosi Initiative. And I was here not too long ago and I gave you kind of an update. But I want to take a little while to share a specific project right here in Franklin around the Mound. We've got some really great concepts pulled together and a lot of partnership engaged with it.
So that's, as you guys know, that's the setting at this point in time. As you know, the red building at about 7 o'clock on that image is Dan's Auto, owned by Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, and the mound in the center. So, as you know, the tribe had thought about establishing a museum on this site. And we spent a lot of time thinking that over, listening to what people in the community wanted, listening to what members of EBCI wanted. And we realized that a museum wasn't going to tell the full story. It wasn't going to tell the story of all the cultures in the area, past, present, and future. And so what we came up with was Nokwishi. The elders or the speakers have told me that that's the proper pronunciation, and I'm trying to use it. That Nokwishi was an agrarian community. And so we took that, and ruminated on it a bit and realized that maybe there's a way to reestablish that and enhance the county and the town. The foods and language are very important to the tribe, and so we wanted to incorporate that in what we're doing. We came up with the thought, let's plant the area around Nokwishi with traditional Cherokee foods, the Three Sisters, other agricultural crops. They were incredible breeders of various crops and such. And then create a restaurant, a Cherokee-themed, modern, contemporary, casual sort of restaurant. So sorry, I got a sucker in my mouth so I don't cough. We did a survey. What people want a lot is to get some more information. Everybody wants to learn about the heritage, not only of the tribes that were here, but of all the other cultures that were here. So a learning center. And then intercultural understanding. As you guys know, from the history of Nokwishi is super important. So, we figured that we would put together something that had outdoor experiential design, diversity of economic aspects so that we can have a good positive revenue flow, have a complex of assets on site, and we want to intersect what we do there with other sites in the county. So the indoor learning center could be, it could have a commercial kitchen that teaches some of the cooking that's done at the Cherokee restaurant. It could have basket making or music or things like that. Has opportunity in this site for internships and jobs, particularly if we create a demonstration farm on site and a restaurant. We have what we call seed to service. We can create jobs for people who are coming out of substance abuse or trauma or other such things. And then we tried to create it so that it was pandemic sensible. So this is just a concept. Nothing is where it would be on the ground, but it gives you an idea of how we want to put crops, fruit trees, food forest, things like that in a really green space around there, and create the restaurant and have a learning area. Aerial view changed from the one I first showed you. This is, again, nothing where it would be on the ground necessarily, but providing opportunities. And down at the end there, I highlighted around the town property, because at the time I wasn't sure what the possibilities were there. And I've spoken to Mayor, and he said could probably do some plantings down there, but I haven't gone to town council yet. And then, let's see. So, A little bit about the numbers, and you guys know some of these numbers. What we're creating here is cultural tourism and culinary tourism. They're two of the biggest things in the tourism world right now. It's sort of like it's creating a cultural district, which is sort of urban lingo for what would be happening here. As you probably know, these numbers came out of the feasibility study that was done in 2019 for the museum. 13.3 million tourists in the Western Mountain region. Macon County's in the top third, and you guys know all that. 20% of visitors like to go to historic sites. This number is a new one that you probably haven't seen before. It came out of the National Arts Association, I guess. 73% of millennials, when they travel, first and foremost, before anything else, want cultural interaction. They want to eat the foods of the area. They want to hear the music of the area. They want to immerse themselves in the culture of a place. And then 76% of all travelers to some degree participate in cultural activities. And then the numbers at the bottom. Traffic around the mound is 22,000 vehicles per day, according to this feasibility study. If you capture 1% at a restaurant, that's 220 seatings. And then if you capture 0.5% for the demonstration farm and exhibits, it's 40,000 per year. The museum was scheduled to have a gross income of $511,000 a year. When you put together a restaurant, learning center, exhibits, I went very, very conservatively on this, but you're at 3 times as much. Increase to the job sector, farm would be about 5 to 8 positions, restaurant about 20, and then indirect. I put down 10, it's really much more than that, but you get another 1.6 million. So we're talking about a $3 million revenue stream. It's not a huge number, but when you're talking nonprofits, it's a huge number. We're used to running in the red all the time, and so to do something like that is pretty phenomenal. And then someday, maybe the whole thing would be engaged. We'll see how that goes. So, the reason I'm coming to share this with you, it's a huge multi-million-dollar project, as you can imagine, and we intend it to be a combined public-private effort, and we want to, first I'll say, the county and the town are going to be the primary beneficiaries of it. We would like you guys to engage at a really high level with this. It might mean identifying someone to work directly with us to help identify what this is really going to look like, because this is just an idea at this point. It's going to grow and it's going to morph, and it's going to be something a little different. So we would like your input. We're also going to ask you to pony up some money when the time comes. You need to be a lead in this. We're going to try to come up with probably local community resources, around $2 million. We want you guys to be a big piece of that. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Any comments?
We have met before, and it's a very interesting concept. And as we know, the tribe is going to have to be a huge player in this, as will the Preservation Foundation.
The tribe already is.
And so I think anything that, you know, the mound has been for several reasons, but we've all recognized how important it is. And I think in the future that we thank the people that y'all have worked so hard to get to this point.
So, what's inside that mound?
Well,
does anybody know?
there are some ideas, and Stacy can probably help answer this better than I can, but There was a little tiny dig on the edge of it. It's not a burial mound, although they believe that there are some graves inside of it. The tribe built the mound. There's a few different kinds of mound. There's two kinds. One that was built all at once, where they brought in the dirt and they built a mound, and those tend to be pyramidal in shape. But this one, the round style, when people were building their houses, they would take dirt from where their house was going to be, and they would put it there, and then the council house went on the top. Their story is that the eternal fire burns inside of it to this day. Can you add anything to that, Stacy?
Yeah, based on some of the other mounds that were excavated, when they were building roads and other things in the region, what they think is that some of those had burial chambers that are actually underneath the base of the mound, so that they started out as sort of burial caves, and then those became special places, And over time, that's where you'd want to put your council house, your important building, and most of the mounds in Macon County serve that purpose, to be a prominent place in the village where they'd have the council house. But it had another practical purpose too, and that you kept the most important structure up out of the floodplain, because they always built, in the fertile bottom lands in the region. But there's some good descriptions of from Bartram and other people who came to the area of how those council houses were built, and that they had a fire in the middle of the council house, and the way that was constructed. So there's a lot of good information, but over the years there's been a lot of misinformation too.
Right.
Thank you.
It used to be a lot taller, didn't it?
Yeah, there's 12 to 14 feet of fill around the bottom of it, so it goes down 12 to 14 more feet. Plus the top, it has been, the word eroded isn't quite correct, but it's not as high as it was. So yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll be back to share more as we move on. Oh, you know what? Real quick, just letting you know, I talked to you about the Apple Trail last time I was here. It's moving forward, and we'll keep you posted on how it goes. And also kind of preliminary to getting people to understand what we're doing at the mound is a 5-part webinar on healthy, traditional Native American cooking. So just a couple little things. Thanks
Elaine,
for
let me add one thing. One of the reasons that I'm excited to be on this board is not only the cultural and heritage preservation that's important to our area, but I think looking at those numbers where we talked about residual employment is one of the most important numbers there, because Elaine's working really hard to make this a national level project, because these kinds of working together on projects like this between tribes and local government just normally doesn't happen. And so there'll be, I think, significant federal funding, state funding, some local funding, and a significant investment by the tribe. So it's really a big economic development project for Macon County.
It's huge. I will add to that this will be first of its kind in the country. There's no place where there's a native food, I hate to say farm to table, but farm to restaurant, where you show people what was grown historically and what's grown today, and they can follow that path in and actually get that gastronomic connection to an old culture that we've all grown to be more understanding of cultures, Thai and Mexican and Chinese foods because we eat their foods, and same thing here. So, thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'm not showing any old business. So we'll move on to new business. Item 11A, resolution providing final approval of financing terms and documents.
Okay.
Let's try it again.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just the final resolution that needs to be approved by the board. This will allow us to move forward with the financing, using limited obligation bonds. This resolution approves the forms of the documents. There were 4 documents that Mike sent in a separate email, which was a draft official statement, a draft trust agreement, a draft deed of trust and security agreement, and a draft bond purchase agreement. So by approving this resolution, you're approving the draft forms of those 4 documents I just mentioned. And this directs the chairman and or the county manager to be able to execute the documents, and then also authorizes us as officers to complete the closing, which would occur, if everything goes as planned. I think it's around March 25th we plan to close. We're looking to sell the bonds on March 8th. This also names the people we're working with: Baird as underwriter counsel, Sanford Holzhauser as bond counsel, Davenport as financial advisor. So be happy to answer any questions.
Can we get a motion to approve the resolution? Resolutions? Is it just one?
It's one resolution,
Just one, okay.
and you're incorporating all those draft
incorporates
documents.
different things, okay.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Shields. Second by Commissioner Bill. All in favor? Aye. Consideration of award for Macon Middle School renovations.
Okay. This I'm going to read into the record, and if you don't mind, whoever makes the motion, you're making the motion as I'm reading it, if that's okay with y'all. Well, first of all, of course, we opened bids February 2nd. We were, very pleased, and Derek, please chime in. We received 4 bids. The lowest bidder, including all 7 alternates, was $8,178,000. So, of course, these bids came in, we were looking at $12 million was what we were expecting. So, instead of us having to finance about $15.4 million all in, or 15.5, excuse me, we're going to be financing all in about 10.5. So about $5 million less that the county will have to finance, which of course is good news because that allows us more flexibility moving forward to fund other projects of the county and or the school. You want to add anything to that before I read the motion?
Another thing that I would like to add is with those bids, you had out of the 4 bids, you had an 8-1, an 8-3, an 8-9, and a 9-2. So, with having the 8-1 and the 3 of them under 9 was a good sign that that this 8.1 wasn't just a low ball. So
Who was the second bidder?
H&M.
The second low bidder, yeah, it was H&M
Is that the only one we've had experience with on that list? We've worked with H&M a lot, so I don't remember none of the others.
New Atlantic would be the 8.1 we're talking about.
Yeah. The others
Where are they out of?
I think they're regional offices out of Charlotte. New Atlantic.
We've never worked with them as a county.
Not to my knowledge.
Not your name.
And how much difference in money was it from New Atlantic and H&M?
About $150,000.
But now we're by law required to go with
The lowest responsible bidder, yeah.
Responsible.
And we pre-qualified all of these firms. We went through that process. We had a team of county employees, school employees. We pre-qualified, was it 6 firms?
6 firms, yes.
And only 4 bid. So, the school folks were on board. We're on board. The architect's on board. The architect has worked with this company. All 6 firms that we pre-qualified, we all felt
I just
comfortable
keep
with.
remembering South Macon School edition. If you
But
don't
yeah,
remember that.
by statute, we're not allowed to choose H&M just because we've worked with them before. We have to take the lowest responsive bidder, and there's nothing indicating that New Atlantic does not meet that lowest responsive bidder.
You remember the South Macon School edition of that?
Hey, we can't go against the statutes. Okay, any more questions? I will make this comment. Originally, we'd plugged about 7.5% contingency, and this is when we were expecting $12 million. We included 3% for testing and commissioning. On this new bid, since it does seem, of course, low, and they were all low, relative to what we had thought, my numbers are proposing a 10% contingency, just to be safe, and of course, we'll still have that 3% testing commissioning, which would cover those special tests that have to become, they come in and maybe test concrete or welding or whatnot to make sure it's up
Where's
to
the
standard.
architect fees in that?
The architect fees are 8%. They're like $1,046,000.
But that's included in what?
Included in what?
Does that include any of those numbers that you just mentioned?
It's included in the total financing, which would be, the whole package includes the bid, the contingency, the testing, commissioning, the architect fees, the issuance cost, the survey that was done, the underwriter's discount. All of that number comes up to your 10.5 million roughly.
Okay. That 8-1 is the base bid and all, like what
All
we said, all of
alternates.
the
All
alternates.
7 alternates,
So
yeah.
that's included. I think that base bid was 7.6.
7489.
7.5, yeah. So, I mean, we were able to, for 8-1, get the base bid plus all the alternates that were just going to be, that we were hoping originally when we were thinking it was going to be 12 million, that if we could get a few of those alternates, it would have been nice, but we're really fortunate to.
Now, before, Mr. Manager, we always had, the board went ahead and hired somebody from this board for another set of eyes on the project. Terry Bell done 2 schools. Have we considered that?
We've got Jack Morgan that will be working hand in hand with the architect, be on site at that project very extensively.
Wonderful.
Can we get a motion to approve?
Like I said, if you wouldn't mind for me to read the motion, because
Sure.
it's contingent on 2 things. So the motion would be to award the Macon Middle School renovations contract to New Atlantic Contracting Incorporated in the amount of $8,178,000, contingent upon local government commission approval and successful closing of the financing. And those 2 dates we're looking, I think, is March 2nd for LGC approval, and then, like I said, around March 25th for closing. So again, we are awarding the bid, but it's contingent upon those 2 things. So that would be your motion. Please, sirs.
Make a motion to approve it as presented by Lloyd Carpenter.
We have a motion by Commissioner Shields. Can we get a second?
You're the other school person, Josh.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, I missed all this discussion, and just to be honest with you, I would have liked to have been a part of it, and I've done some due diligence on this issue, and, in my personal opinion, I'll just be honest with you, I feel like that $8-10 million could be money better spent. If you go back on this, we're changing a part of the air conditioning unit, part of the roofing system, being like we're just putting a Band-Aid on a gushing wound. And like I said, I missed a lot of this, and I didn't get to do the due diligence and get to see all the in the meeting. So that's my reservation.
Okay.
But I'd like to, again, see further, some of the plans and the 10-20-year plan, to fix this.
Josh did miss a lot of facilities meetings that we've had for the last year, 18 months, and I respect that.
Sure. Commissioner Bill, were you involved with any of those?
Oh, yeah. I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a second by Commissioner Bill. Any other questions, comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, let the record reflect that was a unanimous vote. All right. Thank you, Josh. No problem. Consideration of contract agreements for Macon County Transit to become a transportation provider under managed care. Transit Director, Ms. Kim Angel, welcome.
Good evening. First of all, I appreciate you being patient with me and accepting these documents on Saturday when I was able to email them to you. We have been working pretty extensively I think Kim and I were texting at 10 o'clock on Thursday night to try to get this finalized. So, as I had stated in my email, and I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible. There's 20 months of background information here. I know Commissioner Beal's very familiar with the fact that Medicaid will be transitioning over to a managed care. That is under legislation that has been, DHHS was told by the General Assembly that July 1st of 2021 that they expected this launch to happen. It was something that just happened about a year ago and got put off, and then COVID come around and that changed things. Well, in the whole transition to managed care, the part that affects my department is the transportation and those who need to go to non-emergency medical transportation. And basically what will happen is, the structure now is, if a Medicaid beneficiary needs to go to a doctor's appointment, currently they call DSS. DSS confirms that it is an appointment that they will pay for, then they call us and we book the trip. Under managed care, this is done through private brokerage firms, and there are two, because there are 5 private health care providers who are, or prepaid, I'm sorry, PHP stands for prepaid health care providers. 4 of the prepaid health care providers will be using Motive Care, which you have that contract. 1 of them will be using One Call. So what will change is those who transition over to managed care will then call the transportation broker for their medical transportation arrangements, and then that broker then will dispatch or put this information out to either the transit system. We will have access to it if there are private transportation providers that are part of their network that say they will do medical transport. It can also go to a private transportation provider. But in order to participate, we have to have contract. This has been a very interesting process, like I alluded to in my email. What we tried to do is preserve public transit in the community setting, and we've done pretty much that, as much as we could. We got DHHS involved. It involved changing some policy guidance at the state level. And so between when we first started this in 2019, Chester went through the initial agreements, and then I worked off of Chester's recommendations until recently, and then Kim and I have had the opportunity to go through these several times together. And Kim is as satisfied as we can be with a contract, and I'm as satisfied as we can be with a contract. So I will just need you to give me the approval to go ahead with these contracts.
I know you've worked hard on these, so.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say, and I can speak on behalf of Mr. Beckford, I can speak on behalf of our transit system, that these changes we're going to see coming down the road are not very welcome. I think I can say that they can't. It's going to be a tailored system, as we all know. It is very complicated, which could have been made so simple. It's to allow local governments to access, just like this transportation thing that Kim struggles with. There's so many, if you read it, Kim's made it sound easy. It is not easy.
We've had 127 meetings.
When you say that she has to have a broker every time to go somewhere, it affects every part of the medical system. Not just mental health, not just the transit that you provide service to these people every day, but we've dealt with it since 2018, June of 18.
Yes.
And so it's coming. Apparently, we don't know, the legislature has changed it 4 times so far. We look for more changes coming out of the legislature as they see that it's just tough. But Kim has to have it approved. She has to get her paperwork in and done. True?
If we want to participate in continue to be Medicaid provider, we
ain't got no choice.
You know, and my stance has been, I've worked at this at a state level, and I'm not sure if you heard what I said, because I was rude and interrupted Ronnie. We've had 127 phone calls since May of 2019 with these brokers and PHPs. That's not the phone calls that we have had with DHHS and the meetings that we've had with DHHS. That's just with the brokers, and the majority of it centered around the contract language.
But it ain't about the service.
But it's not
the money,
about the service, and that's the one thing that I have made very clear to, the brokers are for profit, and I have made it very clear that we are not for profit, that we are for our community. And that's who we are looking out for, is to be able to serve those beneficiaries who are accustomed to their transit system and who can continue to get that same level of service.
But because of where we're at today, Mr. Chairman, we can't hold our transit system up. They've got to be Medicaid approved. It's going to be a mountain of paperwork. You'll see, next thing you're going to see is Kim coming back here asking for help, I'll assure you. But that's where we're at. So I'll make the motion that we approve contract documents as presented. We can continue to be a Medicaid provider for transit.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
You worried me there for a minute, Chairman Tack.
Kim, just hold on one second while we do.
We can't read each other.
Oh, are we doing resolution now?
Have you got the full?
We masked down, I can understand you.
Well, I didn't know where you'd added it because I was out in the hallway when you did the addition.
I don't even know what's going on. I can't understand. I'm glad you took your mask off. I can read your lips.
So did Johnson give you the lowdown? Did Johnson help you with this?
He did not. These contracts were originally written for small private transportation providers. They did not take into consideration the community transit systems and the rural transit systems who serve the whole population, who we have, non-COVID times 8 or 9 people on the vehicle. They were very geared toward private providers who would go out and do one-offs. And that was a very, very, very big battle that we had. And like I said, over Christmas, DHHS stepped in and said, public transit's kind of the gold standard in North Carolina. J. Ludlum of DHHS
It took 4 years.
said that.
Anyway.
And again, 20 months worth of talking, 127 meetings. I get you. 126, whatever it is.
Good job. Good work, Kim.
Very, very. I'm going to write a paper about this, and we've actually been watched nationally by the Community Transit Association of America and been contacted by 3 other states who are doing NEMT about the work we have done here.
True. Thank you, Kim.
All right, we have a resolution exempting architectural services.
Yes. Mr. Bill, if you'll pass those. We have the transit facility, as you'll recall, the funding for it was approved in the fiscal year 21 budget. It's about a $480,000 facility expansion. What this resolution is enabling us to do is exempt the architecture services, as they will be less than $50,000. We've received a contract proposal from Ritter Architecture, a local architect that will actually is going to design this facility for us, and that's going to be at a cost of, I think, right under $20,000, $19,000 to do that, to design that facility. So with the approval of this resolution, we can go ahead and get started on that. And contingent upon our ability to be able to do that. This money is federal money that is passing through the state, subject to the Minnie Brooks Act. We right now have posed the question to the federal government representative, and they are supposed to get back with us tomorrow if we can even use this exemption that is given to us by state law, if we can use it, because this is federal money that is going to be passing through the state. So if that answer comes back and it is yes, we can use this exclusion as it's authorized by general statute, then we can move forward, begin the facility design immediately. If that answer comes back as no, we're going to have to back up and punt and advertise the architecture services for this.
Motion to approve the resolution presented, Mr. Chairman.
All right, a motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Young. All in favor?
Aye.
And one last bit of good news. The last time I came before you, I had my grant applications that we were applying for, and the news was that we may not see state match for our fiscal year 22 grants. We have been told, and they just went to the Board of Transportation last week for approval, including state match. So our capital will be a 10% match, which is really good because I'm getting ready to place 7 vans. And our administrative grant will be at a 15% match, which is what we've been doing for years. So I do appreciate the fact that you were willing to support us if that match did not come through. But I am happy to report that as of right now, the word is we will have the state match included as well.
And we appreciate the support of our representative on that board from Graham County, Mr. Cody.
Absolutely.
And certainly he spoke especially for Macon County. We appreciate that.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And did I hold you up?
Welcome, Patrick. Consideration of new social work supervisor position at Department of Social Services. Patrick Betancourt.
Good evening. Thank you, gentlemen. So as the agenda item suggests, I am before you tonight to request a position for a social work supervisor. It is a grade 35. It begins at $50,058 salary with 20% withholding. The state mandates, DHHS mandates that we have a supervisor ratio of supervisors to social workers in the area of 1 to 5. Currently, we have 2 supervisors in our social work unit. One has a ratio of 1 to 6, and the other one has a ratio of 1 to 9. The supervisor who has the 1 to 9 ratio is also set to retire in the next. We'll put it forward in this year's upcoming budget, but let's hope she decides to hold off for a little while longer, but we need to plan for the fact that she may be retiring. This position is a cost allocated position. It is cost allocated across a number of program areas, so there will be some revenues returned for the position. The budget officer and I have gone back and forth about what the potential revenues are, and that's always a hard thing to nail down, but I think we can be comfortable to say that we would get somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40% revenues on this position. At our current time, we have 15 social workers, and as I mentioned, the one supervisor that we have that is set to retire, she's currently supervising about 5 different program areas, and so the thought would be that we would reorganize a little bit to sequester some of those supervision responsibilities for foster care to one position so that that individual could focus in on the foster care supervision. It's a social work area that's become increasingly complex. Each time we have a review by the state, we're noted in our review for the need to make some improvements in that area. It is a continuous quality improvement process that we're under, and one of the things that drives that continuous quality improvement is the need for having more directed supervision for the social workers. So at this time, I would make the request to add that position. My request would be effective immediately. For this budget year, we would utilize lapse salary that we have to cover it, and then moving forward, budget put in our budget accordingly. Appreciate your consideration.
Find anybody, Patrick?
That's going to be the tough part, Commissioner Beal. We currently have, as of today, we have 3 vacancies, and as of Friday, we'll have 4 vacancies in social work. And I will say it's been one of the longest stretches in social work that we have gone without having good, qualified candidates. COVID has really done a number on the workforce. It was already in pretty dire straits before, but I think that
How many foster children, just for the board's information?
Well, Commissioner Bill, when I did these notes last week, we had 71 in custody. Unfortunately, as of this week, we have 73.
You have 15 current social workers?
Yes, sir.
Or the, including, I mean, you said you had four vacancies in that, 3 or 4?
Yes, sir. Of those 15, we have 4 vacancies.
So you're going to have technically 11?
11 current, yes, sir.
Will this person, do you have somebody that can be, because every county will be required to have a foster care supervisor?
Sure.
Do you have somebody on staff, or will this person have to come on and do that?
We think that we have somebody on staff that we could get trained up pretty quick to do that, but then if we did that, that's going to mean that we're going to have another vacancy. All it's going to do is create a domino effect. So the real trick will be to find someone who's got some good experience doing casework and understands that transitioning from casework into supervision isn't quite as easy as doing as you might think it is.
And that grade 35 is set by the state?
Yes, sir. That's a county grade. The state calls it a different number. I'm afraid I don't know what that is off the top. But that's it's equivalent. Yes, sir.
Motion to approve the request made by our Social Services Director, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Bill to approve the request. Second by Commissioner Shields. Any further questions, comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time, Doctor.
Thank you, Patrick.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Patrick. Yes, sir.
73 children.
Hmm?
73 children.
Can it do what?
73 children in foster care in Macon County.
73 children.
Oh.
73 in foster care.
Consideration of audit contract with Martin Starnes and Associates.
So of course, as you're all aware, we have to be audited every year. So this is to approve the audit contract with Martin Starnes and Associates. The fee is $67,800, which is the same as the fee we were charged for fiscal year 2020 audit.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Commissioner Higdon to approve the audit contract.
Second.
Have a second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor?
Aye.
Renewal of lease agreement with Hudson Library. Mr. Manager.
Yes, and I'll let Kim speak here as well. This has been in the works for quite some time now. Hudson Library, this originally underwent a discussion with our previous county attorney and representation from the Hudson Library Board. It's since, as we transitioned attorneys, Kim's picked up on that, and the contract is ready to go. I actually received the signed contract today. We've looked at it from our standpoint. The Hudson Library the Hudson Library Board has looked at it as well, and so has Fontana Regional Library. As far as one thing I was looking for in this contract review, our maintenance obligations in terms of what the county is expected of the county, and those are the same. They're consistent with the previous contract. So again, this has been looked at by the Fontana Regional Library Board, Hudson Library Board, and our Madam Attorney has looked at it as well. If you have anything, Kim, you would like to add?
I don't. We kind of changed a few things around, minor things, added some language to shore up our limitations of liability. Just something we always like to do. And other than that, it was pretty much, it has been approved by the Hudson Library Board as well as the Fontana Regional Library Board, and that's just needs to be approved.
Mr. Chairman, meeting with the Hudson Library Board, they are planning on just maintenance and renovations that beyond the county scope. They have gathered the money to do that, some interior and exterior renovations. So the chairman said that they're full supportive, and of course we supportive anything. They want to improve our property. So.
Can we get a motion to approve the lease agreement?
Motion approved.
A motion by Commissioner Young.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 11G, voluntary shared leave program policy amendment. Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'll look, you have in your agenda packet a copy of the Macon County Voluntary Shared Leave Program. The only amendment that we're proposing here tonight, you can see it's been stricken. As of right now, basically whenever we have new employees come on or some kind of situation where a county employee has to go out for an extended period of time, we have, right now, as you know, every county employee can carry up to 240 hours of vacation time each year. Anything they accrue above that at the end of the year rolls into sick leave. We currently have a policy in place that allows for county employees in another department, say, a tragedy happened or sickness was experienced by another county employee or a county employee's family member and they had to go out. I, as a fellow county employee or any other county employee right now, can donate my vacation time to that employee to be able to give them hours to take off if they go through all their sick leave accruals and vacation accruals, to allow them to continue addressing whether it be an illness of themselves, an illness of a family member, or what have you. They're also, in regards to that, so if I am no relation to that employee, I can donate to them my vacation time. I have to be, as the current policy is written, an immediate family member right now to donate my sick time. What this is doing is it is basically removing the requirement for me to have to be a family member to donate my sick leave, and saying an employee may donate annual or sick leave to another employee. So these are for, an employee will accrue sick leave at a greater accrual than vacation time. There will be more sick leave in that employee's bank rather than vacation. They can only carry 240 hours of vacation. It all rolls into sick leave. And this amendment is being proposed to address those just tragic instances where that an employee has to go out for an extended period of time due to illness of themselves or illness to a family member, and if another employee in their department or within their agency wants to donate them time, then they're able to do so. And this would be extending that to sick leave as well. Lori and I, in discussing this, there is now the sick leave provision. As I said, if an employee leaves the county right now, if they leave with 700 hours of sick leave, the county does not have to pay that sick leave out. But in this instance, it would be, we are taking on liability. We are taking on exposure by doing this, but I feel like it's the right thing to do. In other words, you're going to have, that sick leave is going to become used in this instance by that employee that would otherwise not have been used, say if that same employee left and took all their sick leave with them. But it's going to go to employee by that's been hit in these cases that we're dealing with here, just really unimaginable circumstances, and allowing them to be able to continue to have their position by this donated leave. Now it's switching. It's not creating any new sick leave, or it's not creating any new vacation time. You can already do it with vacation time, and if you're an immediate family member, you can do it with sick leave as well. But in this instance, you've had people that's worked together for years, that develop relationships, and the way I look at it, if I want to donate my sick leave, or somebody else wants to donate their sick leave, then if it's a circumstance that's worthy of that, then they should be able to do that. And the policy already enables us to do that. And all this is doing is making it to where if you donate your sick leave, you don't have to be an immediate family member. You can donate your sick leave now just as if it was vacation time.
but you can't donate it. Oh,
Go ahead.
then it has to be a specific employee donating to a specific employee.
Yes.
There's no group shared. So where's the liability if someone accrues sick leave and leaves willingly, doesn't retire, but leaves the county? And right now, we gain that. The taxpayers or whatever gains that sick leave. So you mentioned the liability. Would that employee that's leaving, he can't donate his 70 hours or 100 hours, whatever he's going to lose, to a group. He has to designate that.
It has to be designated for one individual, and that individual has to have used all of their vacation time and all of their sick leave time, and has no more time available before this time can be activated. And at that point, this time becomes activated that is donated to this employee, and they can use that time until this time runs out.
So there's a possibility that no one needs that sick leave if someone leaves the county voluntarily.
Right.
So if an employee leaves the county, has 100 hours accrued sick leave, and no one is in need of that sick leave, it doesn't just hang there. I mean,
no, it does not hang there.
So
It's
it
gone.
vanishes when that employee leaves.
The advantage to sick leave in a tenured employee is that tenured employee can take that sick leave, take those hours of sick leave and count it towards their time in the retirement system.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. So this is just, like I said, it is for circumstances that are just really, really bad circumstances that are just an unfortunate situation where employees that have gone out or have to go out for an extended period of time, they go through all of their sick leave, all of their vacation time, and there's other employees in their department. Previously, those employees could only give them their vacation time unless they were immediate family member, and then they could give them sick leave as well. All this does is remove that immediate family member requirement. The employee that is receiving this would have to first go through all of their sick time, all of their vacation time, and then, and only then, this time that is donated to that employee would begin taking effect, and they could use that as a means of allowing them to keep their employment and continue to address unfortunate circumstances, whatever they may be having. And it's oftentimes people ask, well, what if somebody's just abusing it? What if somebody won't? Well, the way I look at that is, just like these departments are close knit, many times like families, and I myself, if I see somebody's abusing it, I'm not going to keep giving my time that I've worked to accrue to somebody where the circumstance does not warrant it. And I think it kind of polices itself, if you will. But one situation you do have is, as sick leave accrues, you'll have bigger balances of sick leave on the books. And so if it creates a problem, or it creates just massive amounts of sick leave going, then we can certainly come back and address that. But I think, and I really do believe that this is a well-intentioned move to help fellow co-workers and county employees in dire circumstances.
And what was the logic, I'm sure it's an accounting principle, on banking it?
Lori, do you want to kind of tell me a little bit about
banking sick time?
A sick leave bank. It's accrued sick leave, and if
Yes.
a guy leaves and he's got 70 hours hanging there,
You don't pay him.
yeah, you don't pay him.
Right.
That doesn't count towards retirement. So it's just, in essence, the county gains that.
Right.
So we owe for that sick leave. That's an accrued item. What would be wrong with putting that in a sick leave bank?
I wouldn't recommend that, because you're just creating a greater liability for the county. Because right now, if someone leaves here today, you pay out their vacation time. A lot of people, have thousands of hours of sick time on the book, because they're trying to accrue
Generally,
for
that's your
retirement.
tenured employee,
Yeah.
though.
But, you may leave here and have 200 vacation and 1,000 sick. All the county pays is 200 vacation.
Yeah.
So you don't want to throw that 1,000 in a sick bank for just a free-for-all because you're creating a great liability for the county. You know, it's to the county's advantage for,
And the county
if you
liability.
leave here, that sick time just gets wiped off of our books. Now, there are provisions if you're going to another county or city or town, they may accept your sick hours from us. Or there might be a provision if you come back to work for us within a year that your time's restored. So I would never advocate for taking that sick leave that's left sitting with us and just putting it in a bank.
But he can donate it to a specified employee prior to
For a
leaving.
specific reason.
Well, not really prior to leaving. I mean, you want to, this is active employees are just donating enough to get this person from paycheck to paycheck.
But you said
You
you
know,
can't
and we
add to the
only
bank.
use it as the employee is needing it, you know, to get them through each pay
So you're not-
period. You're not just, let's say 5 people donated 200 hours. We don't just put all of those hours, you know, in their sick time. We put them in as they're needed. And if that employee, you know, their circumstances turn out better than they thought, then whoever donated it, you know, it stays in their sick bank. It don't automatically go to that employee's sick bank. It only goes as needed.
That's in the county
This-
nightmare, isn't it?
This is not a new concept.
It's not new, no.
And here's been the problem with that concept. We three work in a department. Warren can testify to this, anybody that can work. Gary has a real bad sickness. And this has happened. This is where all this, it came to a head several years ago. What happened, Tate has 300 hours of sick leave. I'm out, Gary needs it. Well, Jimmy, aren't you going to donate your time to Tate? That is what happened. And these employees that don't want to do that, but the other co-workers in that department say, hey, you need to donate some to Gary.
You can't coerce.
Huh?
You can't coerce.
Well, but they do. That's what I'm saying. That's the reason that this policy you got to be real careful with is because, and that became a real problem here. That very thing became a real problem with employees, saying that Josh Young came to me and was wanting my sick hours. I don't want to. I love my coworker, but I don't want to give him my sick hours. So you have to be real careful going down this road.
And that's why it's a very private, it's a direct email goes out, like our finance office sends out an email to every county employee to their individual email with a shared leave request. That employee then communicates directly back to the finance office with how many hours that they want to donate out of their personal sick time. So it, you know, while that might go on, we make every attempt for that not to go on. And have it a very...
But it's hard to stop. We found it's very difficult to stop. When you get a group, we all work in one department. And so it's hard to make, because it don't matter what it says on paper, if I'm close friends with these two gentlemen and Josh refuses to help a sick coworker, they really put bad pressure on him, and that's where it all came to a head before. So you can see where that could happen.
No, I understand.
So that's the only thing, Mr. Manager. I think it's a great program. It's people helping people, but I think that's going to have to be watched. They feel like they cannot come and report that. That happened. That has already happened.
I feel
That
like
has happened.
employees need to be discreet with their allotted time. You know, and nobody run around bragging, I have 700 hours.
And that's
that way
why, that's why it's that direct contact with the email going out directly to the employees. And we can certainly, with this change, we can certainly monitor it and report back to the board if anything happens out of the ordinary or something.
Oh, I like it. I support what you're doing here.
Well, I do too, but I'm just saying that's been the that is the only problem we've seen. Warren can speak to it.
That's a real problem.
And so it is a problem. It is a problem. I'm telling you right now.
You're saying what's the problem is coercing other employees.
That's right. You make them feel guilty to give up their hours.
Everybody read this.
It don't matter what they don't matter that.
And everybody read it, though.
When you're in the private, but when you're in private, and you work to give that person every day, Paul. They're not going to say, "Well, read clause 2, section 8." we're gonna say, hey, you need to help Gary Shields out with your time. So it's a lot of pressure on the coworkers.
I wouldn't think so, but maybe it is.
Well, it's been a problem.
Let me ask a question too. Is it, within this motion, is it a need or is it feasible to take this back, grandfathered in on December 31st, January 1?
We're gonna talk about that next. That's our next.
Okay. My fault.
No, that's fine. It's very similar.
I'm good.
We'll get a motion to approve or not approve the.
Make the motion to approve.
Second.
Sure, we've got a motion by Commissioner Young, second by Commissioner Higdon. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. Macon County COVID-19 emergency paid sick leave, Mr. Manager.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board had kind of asked us at the work session to go back with our policy group to look at the COVID-19 emergency paid sick leave provision. As you'll recall, this was 80 hours that beginning April 1st was granted to public sector entities from the federal government, granting 80 hours with 80 hours of emergency COVID sick leave for going out on quarantine, going out with the COVID-19 virus itself. That expired on December the 31st of 2020. Nonetheless, we still are seeing many employees that are either just coming on to be hired, a new employee coming on, they have zero. They start at zero and begin accruing sick leave, vacation time, what have you. Well, if they're out because of a quarantine situation or they contract the COVID-19 virus, then that employee has no time. You also have other employees that during when the 80 hours was available from the federal government, that they were not utilized. They were fortunate, did not have to be quarantined, did not contract the COVID-19 virus, but their 80 hours went away. So what this proposal would be to, for January 1st through September 30th, that's a 9-month period that was originally, the original federal government period was 9 months. It would grant 80 hours with proper documentation from a healthcare provider or the health department saying that this individual is out on quarantine, this individual is tested positive for COVID-19. It would be pretty much, essentially it's a county COVID sick leave. I do think, as we're hearing discussions at the federal level, I think this is something that in another round of CARES Act discussions that you might see come back. So it very well could be that we're discussing just a stopgap measure until the federal government authorizes something again. But we have, especially, we have noticed the problem with the new hires, that if they have to go out, they have to be quarantined, they don't have time on the books. This would really help to offset that, as well as, county employees that did not use it while it was authorized by the federal government, but may go out with COVID now, or have to be quarantined now because of COVID. So what this would do would be restore 80 hours of COVID leave. It would not come from the federal government, it would come from the county to all Macon County employees. And we talked a lot about, and we talked in our policy group about moving forward. And I think moving forward, I think if the board sees so fit to do this, then I think that moving forward, we're going to have to understand, and as unfortunate as it is, that COVID-19 is just going to become a instance where sick time must be used. Because, as long as it's around, it's going to be just like the flu. People are going to catch it, people are going to have it year after year, but I do think in terms of being able to get us through this hump till we see what the federal government may or may not do, as well as address some of the immediate problems that we're having with it now, whether it be from a new hire perspective or county employees that might not have used it the first time, but go out with COVID-19. And Warren and Sheriff, if you want to add to that from anything we...
Sure. One of the things that we talked about, and the big difference when you talk about flu and COVID, and the ability to use that sick leave that we've talked about, and we talked about the 9-month period. Right now, you can go get a flu shot. So there's some personal responsibility for you if you want to try and not be sick of the flu. We have options for you to get a flu shot. We can't offer everybody that vaccination for COVID at the moment. So therefore, there's still some instances that come up, whether through contact tracing you have to be out, or you actually contract COVID. And of course, we're telling you can't come to work, but yet we can't offer you that vaccination if you want it. Now, some people don't want it; they're not going to get it. So, and a couple of things we talked about was what do we do when this is over, when it's ever over? A lot of places are, they're going to make it mandatory, try to make it mandatory that you get COVID vaccinations, and we're not thinking about that. We don't want to go that route. A lot of places, I think it was Harris Teeter offered a bonus to their employees if they got a COVID vaccination, because they knew that if they got it and it worked and it kept them working, it was worth it to them to keep their people there. And those incentive type programs are hard to do. So this was kind of our incentive program. You know, we'll go 9 more months, which is what the federal government did, and we think the federal government will come back and pick this program up, but that's what we assume, but we don't know that. That mirrors what was prior, back in 2020, but at the end of the 9 months, the spigot kind of dries up. And you have to understand, hopefully by then, we've got vaccinations into enough of the population that you have that opportunity to get vaccinated. And if you don't take it by then if you contract it after that, then you're going to be on your own and have to use your regular sick leave. So that was kind of some of the thought process that we put into it to try and come up with something that would be feasible for us and our employees, but yet still be financially feasible for us to do, and something that we could sustain at least for that period of time.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Warren, because with the contact tracing or something like that, you know, if you've been in close contact, then somebody's telling you can't go to work, or saying, hey, if you've been in close contact, you're going to have to be out. You cannot come into work. So, you know, that is not something that employee has went out and intentionally took on. It's just part of where we're at with this virus right now, and the methods that we've got in place for mitigating it nationally. So that was a good point I'm glad you brought up.
What do you think the potential liability? You're talking about 2 weeks per employee.
Yeah, 80 hours per employee.
Well, that's
80 hours.
Up to 80 hours.
80 hours, but you would have to have
Got to have the
documentation from a healthcare provider
that you have COVID, you've been
that you have
quarantined,
COVID
you've
or
been
been
isolated,
quarantined.
whatever the situation. And this 80 hours, it's up to 80. So if you don't have to use it January through September, that's not 80 hours just sitting in your sick bank. You know what I mean? It's you only use it if you need it.
Right.
Your time period, if you were in contact and identified as a close contact, then obviously you'll probably go through the testing process. There's different lengths of time, either 10 or 14 days, depending on your exposure and when that occurred. So that time frame can be way shorter than that. And even if you test positive, it can be even shorter, because you may have had symptoms several days ago. Don't quote me on the exact days, because it's almost like a moving target, but I think it starts, some places will start at 3 days prior to you actually being sick, and then that runs out. So we've had some folks that have used it, but they really haven't used a handful of hours. So it's not necessarily the automatic 80.
And one thing we'd be proposing with this, if y'all approve it, is we would make it retro to January 1. Because of course, we've had several county employees that have used their own sick leave because they've had to be out due to COVID. So they would fill out the form, provide the medical documentation, and we would go back and restore those sick hours that they had to use of their own up to the 80 hours.
I know COVID has affected both of these departments right here.
Something I'd like to add too, just to show the dedication of the employees. I can only speak for my agency. I know it's his agency has done the same thing. We've actually had county employees who have tested positive, who are sick and continue to work from home, doing things like making phone calls, answering the phone, setting appointments, and didn't even collect a dime of that COVID time.
And that's one of the requirements on the questions that we have to ask. If you have the ability to telework, just because you may test positive but you're not symptomatic, you can still work from home, then you're not eligible for this. There's ways to make sure that it's only used for the people that really and truly can't or shouldn't be at work.
And we both have had situations where we can't say for certainty they caught it at work. But for example, one employee I had didn't have COVID, was a brand new employee, come to work in our jail. We had 3 inmates that had COVID, and he caught COVID. So he wasn't there a couple of weeks and got COVID and had to take the time out. And he had no time bill. He had no sick leave.
And 80 hours sounds like a lot, but we've had an instance where we had somebody that had to go out because of contact tracing. They were exposed to somebody. They met the criteria, they really couldn't be at work, couldn't do patient care, so they had to be out. They were fine, didn't feel bad, but they burned through the time that they had to start with. Well, then a couple of months later, they were actually exposed again, and then they were sick. So they were actually had to be out that time. So you've heard a lot of conversation, can you catch COVID twice? Can you catch a different variant? Can you catch a different strain? I can't answer those questions, but I can tell you that there may be cases where you've had people that have had to be told to be out, and it can be more than one time. Some people have been lucky and haven't had any time out. So it's like shooting a moving target. Every time we look at it, it's like a moving target.
Mr. Manager, these are both departments that have the most, COVID has affected the most. Is this the 2 departments?
And health, I would think.
And
the health
department.
Yeah. Yep. And naturally, because they're hands-on.
They're out there every day.
That's right.
To answer, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Laura.
No, I was going to try to just answer Paul's question. Our potential liability, of course, is kind of unknown. But just for comparison, during 2020, for this 9-month period that it was federally mandated, we paid out $103,000 of emergency paid sick leave. So
That's CARES Act.
yeah, we were able to get reimbursement from CARES Act, but yeah, that was the 9-month period.
And hopefully it's coming back again. So that's temporary money. They didn't know how long this thing was going to last.
Yeah.
So for us to pick up one, we can't pick up everything that the CARES Act, when it ended. So we don't know how long this thing's going to last. It may be another 9 years the way it's going now, So at some point, and this is a great benefit. It may not sound like much, 80 hours doesn't, but to the private sector, that's big money, and to the public sector too. But, this COVID's affecting the private sector heavily too. A lot of people don't have any sick leave, certainly no emergency leave. So we need to keep in mind that this is a pretty good little program.
And all of our employees' families, they're concerned because we have to go to work. Our employees have to come to work. We have to keep producing. We have to keep doing the things that we do. And what worries me is having people say, well, I'm not going to go in and be around somebody because if I get COVID, it's going to cost my family a fortune. And we're expecting them, you all are expecting them to be there and be at work. We need to take care of them.
We also want to make sure, that's why we put that 9-month cap on it, that after 9 months, if that's the policy we go with, this is over. We're done with this. And with the stipulation that if the federal government were to pop up tomorrow and say, okay, we're going to pick back up on this COVID leave policy, ours immediately ceases at that point, and we revert to the federal guidelines on that program.
How does an employee, can an employee essentially request to be on quarantine? Come into work and say, hey, so-and-so had it, this and that, I don't feel good. How does
There's
What are the
actually-
requirements?
There's a screening process that it has to be vetted by the health department or health professional, and there's certain circumstances and questions that have to be asked, including what was your exposure, how long was your exposure, is it a legitimate exposure, are you, and I use the term levels, are you 1 or 2 or 3 levels past the source of what you think the problem is? And there's actually some provisions in there, depending on the employee, certain essential employees, you can actually narrow that level down and require them to go ahead and come on into work. So there's actually some fairly difficult questions to ask in there to be answered before that's actually granted to folks. And then I'm not going to tell you it's perfect, because a lot of this depends on the answers that people give you. So some of it you do have to err on the side of caution, but it's not something that we hand out just because somebody in here today perhaps checked positive 2 days from now. That's not the intent of this.
Right.
I've got one question. If you used up all your COVID-19 time on that emergency paid sick leave, and you're a county employee, can you go back to the voluntary shared leave program?
I'm sure you can borrow sick time. We just approved that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you,
you can.
if you had
Make
0
sure.
vacation and 0 sick and 0 emergency paid sick leave county provided, yes, you could ask for
Clear
donations.
my head that you could go back to
Yeah,
that
you could.
voluntary shared leave.
If you've exhausted all 3 sources, yes, you could ask for shared leave.
And somebody will donate you leave, then yes.
Okay.
And I will say that the county manager has a very robust program for that. We probably only get, I'd say, less than a half a dozen of those that I see come through a year. So that has to be a very legitimate reason before we get that.
And I'll say something else.
Motion to approve the emergency paid sick leave.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bill.
Josh want to say something?
We'll get into the discussion. We got a motion on the floor.
Second.
A second by Commissioner Shill's discussion. I have some comments as well. Josh, you want to go? You want me to go? Josh and I had this discussion earlier today. It puts us in a precarious position because we both employ a lot of people. And me in the private sector, I employ over 60 people. I can't afford necessarily to do that for my employees. Last year we were getting some compensation for that. Now we're not. So I have to eat that out of my own back pocket, and if all my employees go down, I can't afford it. So is it good for me to vote to do this for Macon County that can afford it, but yet I can't do it for my own employees? It puts me in a personal position there of how do you weigh this? How do you do it? And it's good for y'all, but it's not good for them. And what do you do? What do you do to handle that? It's not a fair scenario. But anyway, I'm weighing that. Josh, any other comments?
I mean, it's very similar to what I was going to say. It's going to be really, almost hypocritical, maybe condescending to walk in tomorrow morning and look my employees in the eye and somebody's quarantined and say, I'm sorry, I just can't afford, we can't. I mean, it's not that I don't want to, it's the fact that we can't. And this is a need. I'm not going to lie to you. I wish there was a way that if an employee came in with a positive test, we could administer this pay then, because by no means we want to spread COVID. But it's really hard. And my question earlier, it's not to undermine any county employee, but at some point in time, I feel it could be really easily taken advantage of. And like I said, you come in, answer those questions. My wife has COVID. I'm not feeling good. Yada yada. And next thing you know, after 14 days, well, Lord help him, but the next month maybe he gets it, and here we go again. Like the process never stops. So, it's like Jimmy said, it's tough, and I guess there's no real right answer.
I think the way you can come to it, you got to remember who. If Bill Construction all comes down with COVID, so be it. If Tate Landscaping, if Josh Young Tree Service. But compare that to the ambulance service and to the sheriff's deputy and the health department. That's the three departments who've been affected the most. When they call 911, somebody's got to answer, somebody's got to go, somebody's got to be there. This is the front line that takes care of right at 42,000 people in Macon County. So that's the way I justify it in my mind, and I'm not asking y'all to, but that's certainly a justification for me that if one of my employees is sick, I want them to be able to call 911. Ward's going to send somebody. If one of them needs a sheriff's deputy, they're going to call that number, and there'll be somebody there to go. It's a half for every citizen. It's not just us or our businesses, but you all represent every citizen in this county. So that's what justifies it to me. I can only speak for myself.
I'm going to stand here and listen to you all, and I would, with respect, I would just like to ask that whenever you all get done saying your piece and your thoughts, that before you make a vote, give us one last chance to say one more thing.
Go for it.
Now I won't wait till everybody talks.
Everybody spoke. Any other comments? I think all minds are clear.
With all due respect, all of you have very important jobs.
Yeah, word, let me read your lips.
You all have important jobs, but none of you respond to these calls. None of you will be possibly doing CPR on anybody tonight, not worrying if they have COVID. You're not going to be told by the health department, can you go to so-and-so's house? They've tested positive for COVID. I personally have done that, gone to somebody's house to let them know they have COVID and they need to call the health department because they're refusing to call back or they're giving fictitious information. None of you are having to wrestle with these guys when we're arresting them when they have COVID. None of you are having to babysit these individuals, take care of these individuals when they're in our jail. One of the reasons we brought this up was because one of my brand new officers had to take care of 3 inmates with COVID in the jail, then got COVID and then was out of work, lost his ability to pay his insurance because he didn't have enough time. And so he was going to have to pay some ungodly amount that month, which he couldn't afford to pay for that insurance because he didn't have enough hours. I'm not saying your jobs are not important, but you all are not going to be responding and taking care of these individuals that his people are, my people are, and the health department is. We have to work. We have people that have to do these things. We don't have a choice in the matter. Well, yeah, we have a choice. We can be unemployed. But we have to come because if all of us took the same idea that we're not going to come in today because I don't want to take a chance on my children. In the beginning of this, many of us had to strip out in our front yards of our homes because our families made us take off our clothes and put them in the washing machine because they were so terrified of us coming in and bringing something to their families. And so with all due respect, I appreciate what all of you say and I respect your opinions, but I think at least these 3 agencies that I can speak for, and I know there's a whole lot more people that are just as important as us, but that's why we're bringing this to your all attention. And again, I mean no disrespect for saying it, but I think it's the right thing to do by our county employees, your employees.
Any further comments?
I'll make the motion. I think you second.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? All ayes? Okay.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Thank you.
The consent agenda, can we get a motion to approve unless there's something someone would like to remove?
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion by Commissioner Higdon, second by Commissioner Shields, all in favor?
Aye.
We have one appointment, Mr. Ed Trask.
Mr. Chairman, as representative of the library board, Mr. Ed Trask represents the Nanahala community. Mr. Trask has graciously said he would continue his service. I make a motion we approve Mr. Ed Trask to the library board.
We have a motion to approve Mr. Ed Trask to the library board. Second by Commissioner Higdon, all in favor?
Aye.
I do believe we have reason for closed session for attorney-client privilege.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion to go into closed session by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Young. Before we vote, are we expecting any action coming out of this?
I don't think so.
No action? Okay, I don't know, I'm asking before.
No.
No, I wouldn't think.
Expect no action, so we will come out and we will adjourn until our March meeting. Okay. All right. We got a motion and a second to go into closed session. All in favor? Aye.
Private sector, the tax credit for private sector was extended.
When was that?
It was extended with